Good morning, everyone. Last class we talked about Marxism, Leninism, right? And we reviewed the ideology differences between the capitalist blocks and the communist bloc. For this class, we're going to, based on what we learned about the ideology difference between these two blocks, to review the Soviet and the Western powers about their relationship. So in this part, we're going to review this is because we're going to find out if the relationship between US and USSR or the Western powers and USSR, that their relationship always as tensive as what they had in Cold War, and we're going to briefly review their relationship starting from 1917 to 1941. So when Communist Party, why we started at 1917, the reason is this is a time when Communist Party in Russia started the Bolshevik Revolution and built the parallel government in Russia. So for today's lesson, we're going to answer this question: to what extent did the USSR foreign policy in the interwar years reflect its priorities of defense and regaining territory lost at the end of the First World War? Why we should answer this question? Because when we talk about the causes of the Cold War, we always compare US role and USSR's role, and we always say like which role of the country take a more important factor in leading to the Cold War. So here, if the policy of USSR is only for defense and only for regaining their territory lost in the First World War, maybe compared to US, they're not that aggressive. But if not, maybe you can see like they have played a very important role in leading to the Cold War. Okay, the first phase is from 1917, 1919 to 1922. This is a time when Lenin was in power in USSR, and his idea at that time is to expand the idea of communism. If communism was to survive in Russia, it had also to triumph globally. That means at that time, his purpose is not only to turn Russia into a communist country, but also is to spread the idea of communism around the world, especially in the Western Europe. So they think as the first communist country, they have the faith to expand communism. So at that time, the relationship between US and Russia, or not Russia, the relationship between US and Lenin actually is not a very good one, because at that time what happened in Russia is they were having a Russian civil war. So Russian civil war is between two camps. From these two propagandas, you can see the most obvious color in these two propagandas were red and white. So at that time, actually, in the Russian Civil War, it was a confrontation between red, which representing the Red Army led by Lenin or under Bolshevik Party. On the other side, we have the white. The white actually contain a huge amount of group of people who were anti-Bolshevik groups. For example, capitalists in Russia, supporters of Tsar. That means because this is after the abdication of Tsar. So some supporters of the Tsar, they try to like revive what they were have at the old time. And then, for example, US, Japan, Britain, and France. For these countries, the reason why US, Japan, Britain, and France were supporting the whites is because for the red, they are the people who are not supporting the country to join the First World War. That is also the reason why in 1917 Russia withdrew from the war. So they're still hoping that if Russia they can go back to or they can put more effort in First World War, it will be a good thing for US, Japan, Britain, and France. This is the reason why when they were in Russian Civil War, US, Japan, Britain, France, they put a lot of effort into the Russian Civil War to support the whites. So actually at this time, in the Russian Civil War, you can see obviously a huge intervention from the US. And they actually were they were joining the other side of the white, right? Among these years, they were actually having a like very bad relationship and a very bad first impression. But after this, as you all know, is the end of First World War. So After 1918, actually, in US, Britain, France, and Japan, they stopped their support because it was the end of the First World War. They stopped their support to the whites. So this is also a part of the reason why the result of Russian Civil War is the victory of the Bolshevik Russia. But after that, you can see a slight change or a turning point of the diplomatic policy adopted by the leader of USSR. So in this picture, you can see on the left side, we can see Lenin. On the right side, we can see that Stalin, who was the successor of Lenin. So instead of spread communism globally, actually they have turned the priority to consolidate their power within USSR, within Russia. So the possibility of a world communist revolution vanished, because at that time is after the First World War. Every country, they were greatly distracted by the First World War. They have no time for them to think about capitalist or communist. They always focus on the reconstruction of their country. So the consolidation of communism within the USSR became the priority for us. Make use of Germany. This is from 1922 to 1945. So why they should make use of Germany? Do they want to keep a good relationship with the European powers? Actually, that's the main reason why they have to make use of Germany, because at that time they think, since we try to consolidate our power, we want trade, right? And we want different technology. We want support from other European powers, right? This is a time when they think if they can make use of Germany, actually it will help them a lot to develop their country, to consolidate the communism within the USSR. So what they did is make use of the relationship. Firstly, of course, they think it's important to keep a very close relationship with the European powers. So at that time, they adopted a defense policy against Nazi Germany from 1933 to 1939. Because at that time, they want to seek French and British support, so if they can keep good relationship with them, they will have a good relationship with the US and other countries. So they think it's a very advantageous position for them. But at that time, as we all know, for French, British, or the European powers, they always want to restrain the development of communists. This is also the reason why, in return, they regard Nazi Germany actually as the buffer zone of the spread of communism, right? So these countries, obviously, that they rejected the friend request from USSR. And also, this is the reason why in 1939, USSR actually turned to cooperation with Nazi Germany. This is also a time when they signed the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact and also lead to the Second World War. But in the Second World War, what happened is, after only 2 years, after the Battle of Britain, Germany, they start to invade USSR. Finally, USSR find a chance to have a close relationship with his dreaming friends who were Britain and US, right? So defeat Germany with the Grand Alliance from 1941, from the year when Germany started to invade USSR till the end of the Second World War. They wanted to continue close cooperation with Britain and US even after the war. So just now we reviewed the relationship between Soviet Union and other Western countries and US from the year 1917 to 1941, right? Firstly, they were enemies because in Russian Civil War, US, they were supporting the opponents, the whites, right? And then it's the time when USSR, they tried to improve the relationship, but still French, Britain, US, they still say no, right? And after this is the time when they really confront each other, since USSR, they signed the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact and started the Second World War. Last but not the least, after Germany started to invade USSR, finally they joined the Grand Alliance and they were allies with Britain and US and France. and they continue to keep a very close cooperation among all these countries, even after the war. So if we go back to that question, at the start of this class, you can see to what extent did the USSR foreign policy in the interwar years reflect its priority of defense? Do you think most of their policies were for defense? Firstly, in Russian Civil War, I think yes, because the other side actually is like confronting, attacking them, right? It's all for defense, and then they try to keep a close relationship, but the other side just unfriend them, and then they signed the Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact. It's obvious that they just try to keep a very good relationship with Germany to prevent their invasion, their immediate invasion. Last but not the least, still for defense, is because Germany now they were attacking them. That's why they need allies to counterattack Germany. And regaining territory, I think yes. For example, Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact. According to the pact, actually they were able to have some part of the Poland, so they're trying to get back, regaining some land which used to belong to USSR.